The medical chamber was cold, its walls glowing with pale blue lights. The alien doctors moved around with no emotion, their long hands adjusting strange machines. On the stretcher lay a young alien girl, her body weak, her chest rising and falling with great effort. Her eyes were half closed, her skin glowing faintly as if her life force was slipping away. One of the doctors looked at the monitor, his face sharp and cold. "She will not survive the night," he said in a low voice. Another nodded, pressing buttons that turned off. Some of the machines, they did not argue, they did not feel pity. To them she was a failed patient, not worth the effort. They walked away, leaving her to die in silence. The girl felt the air leaving her lungs slowly. She wanted to scream, but no sound came. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She was young, too young to be thrown away like broken glass. She wanted to live, but the ones who should have saved her had abandoned her. Her heart begged for help, but the room was empty. Not far away, in a corner of the same facility, a human soldier rested against a wall. He had been captured during the last war, injured badly, and placed in the alien medical wing. He was not treated with care, only kept alive because the aliens wanted to study him. But tonight, as he lay half awake, he heard something, a faint cry, weak and broken. It was not the cry of a soldier, not the cry of a fighter, but of someone, begging not to be left alone. His curiosity pushed him to his feet, his body aching from wounds. He followed the sound through the dim hallways, each step echoing. Finally, he reached the room with the pale blue glow. Through the half-open door he saw her, the alien girl abandoned on the stretcher, her chest barely moving, her eyes glassy with pain. The human stepped inside, his boots making a soft crunch on the metallic floor. He looked around, no doctors, no guards, only silence. He moved closer, his heart tightening at the sight. Even though she was alien, her suffering felt the same as any human's. She looked at him weakly, her lips trembling as if trying to speak, but only a whisper of breath came out. He knelt beside her, his hands hovering above her fragile form. "What have they done to you?" he whispered, though he knew she could not understand his words. Her glowing eyes shifted, locking onto his face, and in that moment, he understood something. She did not want to die. She was clinging to the last piece of life left in her, hoping someone, anyone, would save her. The human clenched his jaw, anger rising inside him. He knew the alien doctors had simply left her, as if her life had no value. He remembered his own battles, his own comrades who had fought until the last breath. Leaving her here to fade away felt like betrayal, a cruelty he could not accept. He looked around the chamber, searching for anything that could help. The machines hummed softly, their lights blinking. He touched one. It was turned off, shut down by the doctors when they abandoned her. His hands moved quickly, pressing buttons, pulling wires, trying to restart the machine. The girl coughed weakly, her body shivering. He pressed harder, his fingers moving faster, his own blood dripping from the bandage on his arm. Finally, one of the machines flickered back to life, a soft hum filling the silence. The human leaned close, whispering, "Hold on, stay with me." Her breathing was shallow, but when the machine began to pump air into her lungs, her chest rose a little, higher. For the first time in hours, her eyes widened slightly, a spark of life returning. The human knew he could not save her completely, not with his limited knowledge, but he had done one thing the alien doctors refused to do. He gave her a chance. He stayed beside her, watching her breathing, making sure the machine did not fail again. Minutes passed like hours, the tension thick in the air. Every beep of the machine was a reminder that she was still alive, and every breath she took was proof that he had not arrived too late. The girl slowly turned her head, her weak hand lifting with effort, her fingers brushed against his arm, trembling. It was not strength, it was not power, but it was trust. She did not know his name, his language, or his world, but she knew this. When everyone else left her to die, one human stayed. Outside the chamber, footsteps echoed faintly in the distance. The alien doctors were returning, unaware of what the human had done. The soldier tensed, his eyes sharp, his body ready. He knew if they discovered him here, both, he and the girl would face death. But he did not move. He did not run. He stayed by her side. Because in this moment she was not just another alien. She was a life worth saving, and he was her only hope. The footsteps grew louder in the corridor, echoing against the cold metallic walls. The human soldier's heart pounded, his body tensed. He knew the alien doctors were returning. He glanced at the weak girl lying on the stretcher, her glowing eyes staring at him with silent desperation. She had no words, no strength to speak, but her gaze was louder than any voice. It begged him not to leave, not to abandon her like the others had. The human took a deep breath, his mind racing. If the doctors found him here, they would punish him, maybe even kill him. But if he left, she would surely die before the night ended. For a moment his hand hovered over the machine he had reactivated, wondering if it would hold long enough. The girl's trembling hand reached for him again, her thin fingers brushing against his wrist. That tiny touch sealed his decision. He would not leave her, no matter the cost. He looked around the chamber, searching for a way out. The room had one exit, the same hall where the footsteps were growing nearer. There was no time to carry her far, no time to think of a clever plan. His eyes fell on a side door half hidden by crates of medical supplies. It was small, narrow, and dark, but it might lead to another hallway or storage space. Without hesitation, he lifted the frail girl into his arms, her weight lighter than he expected. She let out a faint sound, almost like a sigh, her head resting against his chest. The footsteps stopped outside the main door, voices muttering in the alien language. The human moved quickly, slipping through the narrow side door. The hinges groaned softly and he froze, holding his breath. But the voices outside continued without noticing. The main door opening slowly, he slipped into the darkness beyond, closing the small door behind him. The new room was damp and filled with shadows. Pipes lined the walls, dripping water that echoed like falling rain. The human laid the girl down on a pile of discarded cloth, whispering, "Stay quiet," even though he knew she could not understand. Her eyes followed him, wide and frightened, but full of something else too. Trust. He knelt beside her, brushing away a strand of glowing, green hair from her face. "Don't give up," he murmured, his voice low and steady. "I'm here." She blinked slowly, her lips parting, trying to form sounds. A broken whisper escaped, a word he could not understand. But he didn't need to. Her eyes spoke for her. They pleaded with him, begged him, screamed silently, "Save me." The human searched through the crates in the small room, desperate for anything useful. He found scraps of medical tools, broken bottles, old bandages, nothing that looked like the advanced medicine the aliens used. His hands shook with frustration. He slammed one of the crates shut. The girl flinched at the sound and he instantly softened. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't mean to scare you." She lifted her weak hand again, this time pointing toward a broken vial that shimmered faintly. The human picked it up, holding it against the dim light. Inside was a strange liquid, glowing softly like starlight trapped in glass. He had no idea what it was, but the girl's eyes lit up with recognition. She nodded weakly, her breathing quickening. The human hesitated. It could be poison. It could kill her instantly. But he saw the way she stared at it, not with fear, but with hope. It was clear she believed this could save her. He carefully broke the vial open, pouring a few drops into a small cup he found nearby. Lifting her gently, he pressed it to her lips. She swallowed with effort, coughing weakly, her glowing skin flickering brighter for a moment. The human watched anxiously, his heart racing. Minutes passed, her breathing shallow, her eyes fluttering. Then slowly her chest began to rise with more strength. Her fingers gripped his arm tighter, a spark of life flickering back into her body. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived. From the other side of the wall, the alien voices grew, louder. The doctors were suspicious now, scanning for movement. The human knew their hiding place would not remain safe for long. He glanced at the girl, stronger but still too weak to walk. If they found her, they would finish what they started and let her die. If they found him, they would execute him without hesitation. The girl's glowing eyes locked onto his again. This time he understood clearly. She was asking him not only to save her, but to fight for her. Her silent plea was no longer just survival. It was trust. She was putting her life completely in his hands. The human clenched his fists, his jaw tight. He knew there was no turning back now. He whispered softly, "I'll protect you." His voice steady. "No matter what." Her eyes shimmered with tears, her lips forming a faint smile for the first time. And in that moment, the bond between them grew stronger, a bond that no alien doctor, no cold machine, and no empire could break. Outside, the sound of metal doors sliding open echoed. The hunt had begun, and time was running out. But deep inside the shadows of the damp storage room, one human had made a promise and one alien girl had found her only hope. The damp storage room was dark, the sound of dripping pipes echoing like a steady heartbeat. The human soldier pressed his back against the cold wall, listening to the alien voices outside. They were searching, their footsteps heavy, their scanners humming with sharp electronic beeps. Any second they could push open the door and find him, find her, and end it all. The alien girl lay weak on the cloth pile, her glowing skin dim but steadier than before. Her fragile breaths filled the silence, and her eyes never left the human. Even in her broken state, she seemed to know that only he stood between her and death. Her lips trembled as she tried to whisper something, but no words came, only a faint sound. The human crouched beside her, placing a finger gently over his lips, signaling her to stay silent. She nodded weakly, her trust in him deeper with every passing second. He searched the room quickly, his eyes moving from crate to crate. There had to be something here, food, medicine, or even a tool to defend themselves. His hands brushed over rusty containers, old rations, broken syringes, and cracked bottles. At last, beneath a pile of metal scraps, he found a small alien scanner, its screen flickering faintly. He tapped the side until it hummed to life, glowing with a soft green light. The scanner displayed strange symbols, unreadable to him. But when he passed it near the girl, it beeped loudly, showing a pulsing red line. Whatever was in her body was dangerous, something breaking her down from inside. The human cursed under, his breath, his mind racing. The vial he had given her before had slowed the process, but it wasn't enough. She needed something stronger, something hidden deeper inside the facility. But moving her now was almost impossible. She could barely sit up without collapsing. He rubbed his forehead, frustration clawing at him. The girl reached out, her trembling hand brushing against his sleeve. When he looked down, her glowing eyes locked onto his with silent determination. She lifted her hand slightly, pointing toward the far side of the room. The human followed her direction and noticed a vent covered with old grates. It was small, but big enough for him to crawl through, maybe even carry her if necessary. He knelt beside the grate, pulling at it with all his strength. The rusted bolts snapped one by one, the screech of metal echoing too loudly in the silence. He froze, his heart hammering. Outside, the alien voices grew sharper, scanners clicking faster. They had heard something, and they were closing in. The human pulled harder, the grate finally breaking loose. He turned quickly, lifting the girl. Once more into his arms, she was light as air, her head falling against his chest, her breath warm but faint. He whispered softly, "Stay with me." As he carried her toward the vent, sliding inside, the cold metal scraped against his arms and back. The space was narrow, suffocating, but it was their only chance. Behind him, the door to the storage room burst open. Voices shouted in the alien tongue. Scanners sweeping, searching. But by then, the human had already dragged the girl deeper into the darkness of the vent. Their bodies pressed against the metal, every sound magnified, every breath dangerous. The girl's glowing skin cast a faint light, threatening to give them away. The human quickly pulled his jacket over her, shielding the glow. Her small hand clutched at his shirt, her body trembling with fear. But she did not cry out. She trusted him completely. They crawled for what felt like hours, the vent twisting and turning through the facility. The air was stale, dust choking his lungs, the sound of machinery rumbling above. Every few steps he stopped listening, making sure no guards followed. The girl's breathing grew weaker, and he knew time was running out. She needed real treatment soon, or the silent plea in her eyes would fade forever. Finally, the vent opened into another chamber, larger and quieter. The human carefully lowered her onto the floor, brushing dirt from her face. She looked around weakly, her eyes widening slightly. In the center of the room stood a broken healing pod, its glass cracked, wires sparking faintly. The human rushed to it, his hands working quickly, pulling cables, pressing buttons. The machine flickered weakly, then died again. He hit the panel in frustration, the sound echoing through the room. The girl coughed violently, her body shuddering. The human dropped to his knees beside her, gripping her hand tightly. "No, not now," he whispered harshly. "You can't give up now." Her glowing eyes met his, and once again she reached for him. This time her hand rested against his chest, right over his heart. Her touch was weak, but her meaning was clear. She trusted him. She believed in him, even when her body was failing. The human swallowed hard, determination flooding through him. He refused to let her slip away, not here, not like this. He returned to the broken pod, ripping out wires, forcing them back into place. His hands bled from the sharp edges, sparks burned his skin. But finally, the machine hummed faintly, a weak glow filling the pod. He lifted her again, placing her gently inside. The pod's light wrapped around her body, flickering uncertainly. Her breathing steadied for a moment, then faltered. The human slammed his fist on the side, yelling, "Work, damn it, work!" The machine pulsed brighter, its glow wrapping around her chest. Her body relaxed slightly, her glowing eyes closing slowly. The human pressed his forehead against the glass, whispering, "I won't lose you. Not now." Outside, faint alarms began to echo through the halls. The aliens had noticed the power surge, and they were coming. The human looked at the flickering pod, then at the sealed vent. He knew they had only minutes before soldiers flooded the chamber, but he did not move. He stayed by her side, because in the hidden shadows of this cold facility, one fragile life was fighting to return, and one human had already sworn to protect it at any cost. The chamber lights flickered weakly, the broken pod humming as if caught between life and death. The human soldier pressed his forehead against the glass, watching the alien girl inside. Her chest rose and fell slowly, each breath a fragile victory. But he could see it. The machine was failing, the energy fading with every passing second. Outside the chamber, distant alarms echoed like angry bells. The facility had detected the stolen power surge. Soldiers would be on their way. The human's heart pounded. His eyes darted across the room. He needed something stronger, something hidden, something the doctors had denied her. The faint green scanner still blinked in his hand, showing a red warning line that refused to disappear. Her body was still poisoned, still dying, and this broken pod would not be enough to stop it. He moved quickly, searching the shelves and crates, tearing through dusty files and glass containers. Most were empty, others filled with strange liquids. He did not understand. But then, hidden beneath a layer of broken tools, he found a sealed case. Its surface was marked with alien symbols, glowing faintly in red. The moment his fingers touched it, the scanner beeped sharply. The human froze, staring at the case. Whatever was inside was dangerous, forbidden perhaps, even outlawed. But his eyes shifted back to the pod, where the girl's glowing skin was already fading again. Her fragile hand twitched against the glass as if calling to him. He clenched his jaw, his decision made. With a grunt, he forced the case open. Inside lay several vials filled with a thick golden liquid, glowing like captured sunlight. They radiated warmth, the air around them humming with unnatural energy. The human picked one up, feeling its vibration run through his palm. It was alive, powerful, something the doctors clearly did not want anyone to use. But if this was forbidden medicine, maybe it was because it was too strong, too unpredictable. He glanced back at the girl, her weak form trembling, her lips parting in a silent plea. There was no time to think, only to act. He rushed to the pod, holding the vial against the injection slot. The system resisted, red warnings flashing across the cracked screen. The human growled in frustration, slamming the vial harder until the glass shattered into the chamber. The golden liquid spilled like fire, seeping into the pod's energy stream. At first, nothing happened, only silence. Then the girl's body convulsed violently, her glowing skin flashing bright white. The pod's alarms screamed, sparks flying from the wires. The human grabbed the glass, shouting, "Stay with me," his voice raw with desperation. Her body twisted inside, her breaths ragged, her eyes wide with pain. It looked as if the forbidden cure was killing her, not saving her. For one terrible moment, he thought he had doomed her completely. But then, her breathing slowed, her glowing skin steadied. The wild convulsions faded into soft trembling. Her eyes, once clouded with weakness, slowly opened. This time they shone brighter, clearer, filled with a spark of strength he had not seen before. The human exhaled a shaky breath, relief washing over him. He pressed his hand against the glass, meeting her gaze. She raised her trembling hand, pressing it against his from the other side. For the first time there was no plea in her eyes. Instead, there was gratitude, fierce and undeniable. He had done what the alien doctors refused to do. He had given her the forbidden cure, and it had worked. But the moment of relief shattered when the sound of heavy boots echoed down the corridor. Alien soldiers were coming, their voices sharp, their scanners locking onto the chamber. The human pulled the broken scanner from his belt. It flickered weakly, but he saw the readings. Her body was stabilizing, but not yet strong enough for her to walk. If they were caught here, she would be dragged away and executed. His chest tightened, his hands curling into fists. He had risked everything to keep her alive, and he would not let them take her now. He pulled the pod's release lever. The glass, sliding open with a hiss of steam, the girl sat up weakly, her body trembling but her eyes sharper than before. She looked at him, her lips moving, whispering a broken sound that almost formed a word. He did not understand the language, but he knew what it meant. She trusted him fully, ready to follow, wherever he led. The door to the chamber burst open, alien soldiers storming inside with glowing weapons. The human grabbed a metal pipe from the floor, his body tense, his heart racing. The girl tried to stand, stumbling forward, but he caught her, steadying her with one arm. The soldiers shouted, demanding surrender, their voices echoing through the chamber. The human's eyes narrowed, his grip on the pipe tightening. He whispered to the girl, "Stay behind me," even though she could not understand. And as the soldiers aimed their weapons, he stepped forward, a single human standing against an alien squad, protecting a fragile life that had once been abandoned. The golden light of the forbidden cure still shimmered faintly in her veins, her strength slowly returning, her gaze locked on him with unwavering trust. And in that moment, hidden between the sparks and shadows, it was no longer about survival alone. It was about defiance, about hope, about the promise that one human would not let her die. Not now, not ever. The chamber shook with the sound of heavy boots. The alien soldiers filled the doorway, their glowing weapons raised. The human soldier stood tall, gripping the metal pipe, his eyes sharp, his body ready. Behind him, the alien girl leaned against the broken pod, her skin glowing faintly, with the golden cure still inside her veins. She was weak, but alive, her gaze fixed on the human as if he was the only shield she had left in this cruel world. The soldiers shouted in their harsh language, their voices full of command and anger. They scanned the room, their devices beeping loudly, the stolen energy trail leading straight to the pod. One soldier stepped forward, raising his weapon, the glow aiming directly at the girl. The human moved instantly, blocking her with his body, his makeshift weapon raised. The alien soldiers laughed coldly, mocking him. One unarmed man against trained fighters with deadly weapons. But the human did not step back, his voice low and steady as he whispered over his shoulder. "Stay down, I won't let them touch you." A shot rang out, a burning flash of light exploding against the metal wall beside him, Sparks flew, smoke filled the air. The soldiers had opened fire. The human charged forward with a roar, swinging the pipe with all his strength. The first soldier was caught off guard, the pipe smashing into his helmet, sending him crashing to the ground. Chaos erupted, the chamber filled with shouts, weapons firing, metal clashing. The human fought with desperation, his body moving with raw instinct, every strike meant to buy another second. Behind him, the alien girl crawled to the side, clutching her chest, her breath unsteady. Her glowing eyes widened with fear as she saw the soldiers swarming him. But she also saw something else. The golden cure inside her veins was reacting, her body trembling, strange light pulsed from her hands, from tiny sparks crackling in the air. She gasped, not understanding, but some instinct told her this power was part of her now. She pressed her hands to the floor, and a faint shockwave spread across the chamber. It was weak, but enough to knock one soldier off balance, giving the human a chance to strike. The human glanced back, his eyes meeting hers. He didn't know what she had done, but he saw the determination in her face. She was not only surviving, she was trying to fight alongside him. He gritted his teeth, swinging again, forcing another soldier to stumble back. But more were coming, shadows moving in the doorway, more boots pounding in the halls. They were outnumbered, trapped, hunted like prey in the dark. The girl's body shook violently, the cure's power spreading through her veins faster. Her hands glowed brighter, and this time the shockwave was stronger. The lights above flickered wildly. Some of the weapons in the soldier's hands sparked and failed. The human seized the moment, grabbing one of the fallen guns, firing back clumsily but with deadly accuracy. 2 soldiers fell, smoke rising from their armor. The other shouted in anger, retreating slightly, calling for reinforcements. The chamber filled with silence for a moment, broken only by the hum of the broken pod. The human breathed heavily, sweat dripping down his face, blood. On his knuckles, he turned quickly, rushing back to the girl kneeling beside her. Her glowing eyes met his, full of exhaustion but also pride. She had helped, even if it drained the last of her strength. Her hand lifted weakly, resting against his chest again. Her lips moved, whispering a sound he could not understand, but the meaning was clear. She was telling him not to stop, not to give up. The human's jaw tightened, his eyes burning with determination. He glanced at the vent in the corner of the chamber, their only way out. The soldiers would return soon, stronger, with more weapons. They could not stay, not here, not trapped in this room. He slid his arm under her, lifting her into his arms once again. Her body was light, her head resting against his shoulder, her glowing skin illuminating the path ahead. The chamber doors shook violently as more soldiers pounded from the outside. The human hurried to the vent, pushing her inside first, then crawling after her. The narrow tunnel echoed with their breaths, their movements scraping against the metal. Behind them, the chamber doors burst open, shouts filling the room they had just escaped. The human pushed forward faster, dragging them both through the tight space. The girl clung to him, her glowing eyes flickering with both fear and trust. The tunnel twisted downward, leading into darker parts of the facility. Finally, they dropped into a maintenance shaft, water dripping around them, steam hissing from broken pipes. The human laid her down gently, scanning the shadows. This place was darker, colder, but it offered them cover. The girl reached out, her trembling hand catching his wrist. Her eyes wide, she did not speak, but her look was clear. They were still being hunted. The human nodded, tightening his grip on the stolen weapon. His voice low, steady, full of promise. They won't find us, not if I can help it. Above them, the soldiers spread out like wolves, their scanners flashing red across the halls. Their voices echoed, full of anger. Find them, human, find the girl. The hunt had begun, and the dark facility became their hunting ground. But hidden in the shadows, one soldier and one fragile alien girl clung to life. And every step forward was not just survival. It was defiance against an empire that had already chosen to let her die. And now the hunters were about to learn what one human's will could truly mean. The maintenance shaft was dark and dripping, every sound magnified as if the walls themselves were listening. The human soldier crouched low, holding the alien girl close, her glowing skin the only faint light guiding their way. Her breaths were uneven, shallow, but stronger than before, the forbidden cure still working inside her veins. He pressed his ear to the floor, hearing boots above, soldiers spreading out like hunters tracking prey. The scanners hummed faintly, their beams flashing through cracks in the walls. They were getting closer, too close. The girl stirred weakly in his arms, her glowing eyes opening slowly. She tried to lift her hand, pointing down the shaft. Her movements were faint but certain, as if she knew a way out hidden deep inside this place. The human frowned, uncertain, but her eyes were clear with silent insistence. He trusted her instinct, shifting her weight and moving deeper into the narrow tunnels. Every step echoed with the hiss of steam and the distant clank of metal pipes. Behind them, faint shouts grew louder. The hunters were still on their trail. The air grew heavier, but deeper they went, the walls sweating moisture, the ground slippery with grime. The human's muscles burned, his wounds reopening as he carried her. But he pushed forward. He would not let her fall into their hands again. Her life was now bound to his. And he had already sworn to protect her until the end. The tunnel widened into an old service chamber, half flooded with water that reflected the dim light from above. Rusty ladders climbed toward sealed hatches and broken machines lined the walls. The girl stirred again, her trembling finger pointing toward a dark passage at the far side. The human adjusted his grip, carrying her through the knee-deep water, the cold biting into his skin. The sound of the water echoed loudly, too loudly. He froze, listening. Then he heard it. The faint metallic clank of soldiers dropping into the shaft behind them. His pulse quickened, his eyes scanning the chamber, desperately. There had to be another way, another path, something faster than their hunters. Then he saw it, an old rail system, a maintenance cart half broken but still sitting on the tracks. He set her gently on the seat, her glowing eyes watching him with fragile trust. He pushed the cart forward, metal squealing against the tracks. At first it barely moved, but then it rolled, gathering speed. The tunnel carried them deeper, the air rushing against his face. Behind them, the echoes of soldiers splashed into the water, shouting as they gave chase. The cart rattled violently, sparks flying from the wheels. The girl held onto his arm, her weak fingers clinging tightly. Her lips moved faintly, whispering sounds he could not understand. But he didn't need words. He knew what she meant. Don't stop. Keep going. Survive. The tunnel shook as an explosion roared behind them. The soldiers had fired, the blast lighting up the shaft. Shards of rock and metal rained down, the cart swaying dangerously. The human shielded her with his body, his arms wrapping around her fragile frame. The cart surged forward faster now, propelled by the collapsing tunnel behind them. At last, the tracks ended in a wide chamber lit by broken alien screens. The cart screeched to a halt, throwing sparks into the air. The human leapt off, lifting her again, carrying her into the room. It was old, abandoned, but in the center stood a large chamber covered in dust and wires. The girl's glowing eyes widened, her hand reaching out weakly toward it. She recognized it, a healing chamber, far stronger than the broken pod they had used before. Her voice cracked faintly, almost forming a word, almost speaking for the first time. But her body trembled, her strength fading too fast. The human set her down carefully, rushing to the machine. His hands ripped away the dust and wires, pulling open the panels. Inside, he saw old energy cells, weak but not completely dead. He forced the cables back into place, sparks stinging his skin. The machine groaned, the screen flickering, showing faint alien symbols. It was working, but barely. Behind them, voices echoed again, soldiers flooding into the chamber, their scanners. Glowing red, the human clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. He had no more time, no more choices. He grabbed the girl, lifting her and placing her inside the chamber. The glass began to close slowly, the machine humming louder. The golden glow inside her veins pulsed brighter, connecting with the chamber's energy. Her body arched, trembling, as if the machine and the cure were fighting inside her. The human slammed his hand against the screen, shouting, "Hold on, fight it!" Her glowing eyes opened for a brief second, locking onto his face, and for the first time, she whispered a single word in his language. Stay. The chamber lit up with a burst of light, the hum turning into a roar. The soldiers burst through the shadows, weapons raised, their eyes locking onto the human. He turned, the stolen weapon in his hands, his body tense, ready to fight. The chamber behind him pulsed brighter, filling the room with blinding light. The alien girl's figure glowed inside, her form slowly lifting, her strength returning. The human's lips curved into a grim smile. As he aimed the weapon, his voice steady, calm, unshaken. You'll have to go through me first. The hunters stepped forward, their weapons glowing in the dark. But the path was clear now, and the human had no doubt. This was their escape path, and no one was going to stop them. The chamber shook with violent energy, the old machine roaring to life. Blinding light poured from the glass as the alien girl floated inside, her glowing body wrapped in streams of golden energy. The human soldier stood in front of her, weapon clutched tight, his figure a shield against the wave of alien soldiers flooding into the room. The hunters shouted orders in their harsh language, weapons aimed directly at him, but he did not move. His eyes steady, his body ready. A burst of gunfire exploded, bolts of energy striking the walls, sparks raining down. The human returned fire with the stolen weapon, each shot filled with raw defiance. He ducked behind a broken console, pulling the trigger again and again, but there were too many, their numbers overwhelming. Their weapons stronger. One bolt grazed his arm, another smashed into the floor near his feet. He clenched his jaw, refusing to step back. Behind him, the healing chamber pulsed brighter, the girl's body trembling violently inside. Her glowing eyes flickered open, watching him through the glass. She saw him bleeding, fighting alone, standing against an army just to protect her. Tears floated in her eyes, mixing with the golden glow around her. She pressed her hand against the glass, whispering a word he could not hear. But her meaning was clear. Don't give up, not now, not when she was so close to life. The human gritted his teeth, firing again, striking down another soldier. But the weapon sparked in his hands, overheating, burning his skin. It failed, with a sharp crack leaving him armed only with a broken pipe at his feet. He grabbed it, stepping forward once again. The soldiers laughed cruelly, mocking his hopeless stand. Yet still he did not falter, his voice steady, low, filled with fire. She's not yours, not anymore. The soldiers raised their weapons for the final strike. But at that moment, the chamber behind him exploded with light. A wave of golden energy blasted outward, knocking the soldiers back like leaves in a storm. The human shielded his eyes, the roar deafening. And then he saw her. The alien girl stepped out of the chamber, her body no longer frail. Her skin glowed with radiant strength. Her once trembling legs now steady, golden streams of energy danced across her arms, her glowing eyes burning with life. She stood tall, her fragile weakness gone, replaced with a power she herself did not fully understand. The soldiers froze, stunned by the sight, their weapons lowering in fear. She looked at the human first, not the soldiers, not the world around her, only him. Her lips parted, and for the first time, her voice was clear, her words soft, but filled with meaning. You stayed, she whispered. The human blinked, stunned, his breath catching in his throat. He nodded once, his voice rough but steady. I promised, the soldiers shouted again, raising their weapons in desperation, but the girl lifted her hands and golden energy pulsed outward. The blast tore through the room, ripping weapons from their grasp, slamming them into the walls. They screamed, scrambling to retreat, their scanners flashing red. But none dared move closer to her. None dared challenge the power that had awakened inside her. The chamber fell silent, smoke rising, sparks hissing from broken machines. The human dropped the broken pipe, his chest heaving, his body bleeding, but his eyes never left her. She stepped closer, her glowing hand reaching out, touching his wounded arm. Warmth spread through him, soothing the pain, the golden energy seeping into his skin. He gasped softly, feeling strength return where exhaustion had nearly crushed him. She was healing him, giving back what he had given her. Hope. The human lowered his head, whispering, Why me? His voice almost breaking. The girl smiled faintly, her glowing eyes shimmering. "Because you were the only one who saw me as worth saving," she said, her voice trembling but clear. His chest tightened, his heart heavy with emotion. He had fought, bled, nearly died for her, but hearing her voice was the only victory he needed. Outside the chamber, distant alarms still rang. The facility in chaos, but the soldiers who had once hunted them were gone, too afraid to return. The girl glanced toward the tunnel ahead, then back at the human,